My name is Christopher Voisey. I work at Prince Mohammed bin Fahd University in Dhahran, but also at UCL in London. UCL is a global top 10 university. I work in the UCL School of Management. I've been working there for 2 years, teaching master's students in corporate strategy. Just some background. Here I'm Associate Professor of Strategy and International Business. Basically I teach marketing, business strategy, corporate strategy, global strategy, principles of management, international business, undergraduate, executive MBAs, a number of different kinds of levels of teaching. I also have my own corporate advisory, consulting, learning and development company doing executive work with executives. I have my 2 core degrees, I suppose you would say, from MIT Sloan School in Boston, Cambridge, MIT. Still, I think, ranked #1 in the world for 7 consecutive years, MIT University. A master's from London and a first degree from the UK from Nottingham Trent University. Also in the UK we have this, I advise you to look at the website, the Higher Educational Academy has a lot of material on teaching and learning, a lot of resources, and in the UK now to progress in your career you not only need research but you need to have become a fellow of the, sorry, can we close the door? Is that, sorry. Thanks. Yeah. You need to become a fellow of the Higher Educational Academy, and there's different levels of membership. There's fellowship, senior fellow, principal fellow, and there's a lot of resources on the website you can look at for teaching and learning. So that's just by way of background. 10 years teaching in Europe in triple accredited business schools, Henley Business School, UK, University of Reading, Vlerick Business School in Belgium, in the Netherlands, and prior to that I have significant business experience, for example at Fujitsu, working with the president of Fujitsu in Tokyo for 4 years, director at Citigroup in London and New York, and came out of that from Jones Lang LaSalle in London, where I worked for several years also, so quite a background there. What I want to do is to begin by showing you something of the transition of the classroom that I engendered. When I first went to University of Reading, Henley Business School, I was brought in really to sort out the strategy teaching. My former dean or head of school, John Alan Rugman, said, look, the strategy is a complete mess, the strategy teaching is a complete mess, could you come and sort of sort it out? And I managed to get the syllabi redesigned and working effectively. I managed to get the syllabi redesigned so we had a coherent set of courses across a pathway and strategy across the students' educational. And I was sort of teaching on a Friday afternoon, and there was some building work outside and noise, and it was lecturing and 95 slides, and it's tough on Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock after lunch. The students were sort of looking forward to going out at night, and so I was jumping around on the stage and going through my slides, and then at the end I'd have lots of questions and answers, and there were about 125 students in the classroom, and it didn't matter what I did, probably about a third of them were asleep. Every time I turned my back, 10 would leave, and by the time I got to the end of the afternoon, out of 120, maybe there was sort of 30 or 40 left. And then I could engage in application exercises, ask questions, and some of them would engage. It was always the same 3 or 4 people that would always answer. And at the end of the semester, my evaluation was okay. It was 4 out of 5 or something. But you know, I knew it was about a 2. I felt like a 2, but it was 4, but I felt like a 2. So I really had to change that. I wanted to change that. I wasn't happy. So what I transitioned to was the next year, my class looked like this. If I can get this working. Okay. So that's one of my classes. This is quite different to what I was doing before. What would be the difference you've observed in that class to the conventional lecture? What's different in that class?
They are working in group.
Sorry?
They are working in group.
Okay, yes, they're working in groups. Let me just get a pen and write a few things down on here. So let me put down they're working. What about I'll put down teams, because team working and group working a little bit different. Teams. What else? Right at the back.
They are engaged deeply in learning.
Sorry?
With amusement.
They are
They are already engaged deeply in learning with amusement.
with, yes. So they're having fun. Are they learning? Okay, they're learning, but are they learning more or less, do you think, than in a conventional lecture? Do you think they're learning more or learning less? Because a lot of noise. I'm playing music. Sorry?
They are engaged in deep learning. Deep learning.
Can we put the microphone on? So
They are actually engaged in deep learning.
deep learning. Okay. Anyone else?
Very interested.
Sorry?
They are very interested in what they are learning.
Yeah. Would you say interested? Would you say motivated or interested?
They are immersed in what they are learning.
Immersed. Immersion. That's a nice word because it actually includes. You can only be immersed if you're motivated and you're interested. That's a nice word, immersed. Yeah.
It's a relaxed atmosphere.
Sorry. Just wait a minute. We'll pass the microphone.
Relaxed learning atmosphere.
Relaxed atmosphere. Okay. Sorry?
Committed to their class. They are not escaping from you.
They're
Committed to their class. Committed. They are already attending. Committed.
committed. Yes. Committed. Any other? Do we have a microphone here, or are we having to? Let's just quickly. I can, if it's quicker, I can do it.
Students are familiar with each other.
Sorry?
Familiars.
Yeah.
Familiar with each other, and so interesting
Familiar with the?
with each other and with the group.
Yeah. So they are okay. So they're in teams, and they're familiar with each other, collaborating. Would you say? Yeah. So who are they learning from? This is the question. Who are they learning from?
Searching each
Sorry?
other. Searching from each other.
The-
learning from you.
Team learning. Yeah. So what's my role? Okay. So teams collaborating. Okay. Okay. So they're really learning from each other. And one of the criteria that we really want to stress in applications to universities, and I tell people, if you're applying to universities, stress, what can you contribute? People apply, I want to get this, I want a career, I want to do this, right, but what can you contribute? Because this is about students' contribution. That's the first most important criteria. Certainly MBA programs is what can you contribute, because it's the colleagues and people around you, and this is bringing them in, engaging. Any other quick points? Anyone got a burning? Yes, right at the back. Can you pass the microphone quickly at the back, and we'll, thank you.
I can is minimal, so he's maybe just guiding the student.
Sorry?
The role of the instructor is minimal.
Yeah.
He's
So the
just
root,
guiding.
yeah. So the root instructor role has changed. Okay. So instructor.
They are independent.
Okay. Yeah. And again, pass back. Okay. So my role has changed because instead of being, as I say, sage on the stage, I'm now guide at the side. Okay? I mean, I'm taking a picture there, but normally I'm sort of walking around, sitting, and I'm monitoring all the time in these teams who's engaged, who's not. You know, 5 people on a desk, who's a bit out of it, or who's not right. And I'm actually engaged with the teams, checking, and I'll go up and say, well, but what do you think about this? And I'll try and bring people in. So I'm really managing teams actively as I'm walking around the center. Yes, next point, right at the back.
They are enjoying what they are doing.
Enjoying what they're doing, yeah. Yeah, that's right. It's fun, it's enjoyment, right? Okay. And I have to say, this was, yes?
I observed that you permitted to satisfy their basic physiological needs. I see they're drinking,
Yeah.
drinking and eating. And
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I was, this was actually in the agricultural lecture theatre, and the other one, the chemistry lecture theatre, was closed. But I have to say it was quite funny because I was in the chemistry lecture the week before, and I was actually at the end of a class, and we were playing Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, right? And the class went a bit long, and this very old professor came in the classroom like that, right? And I went, oh no, like that, okay. What's he going to think, right? Okay. Because we were playing Stairway to Heaven and Led Zeppelin guitar, right? And we were all working and stuff, right? And I was terrified I was going to get fired. This professor came in, what on earth's going on, you know? But it was okay. So this is a little bit what I changed in my class. This is here a combination of things. It's a combination of what is known as team-based learning, which is, you can read about, team-based learning. I'm using a lot of social media, and I'm also using music. I mean, you know, a lot of people in, you know, if you think about it, I sort of thought, well, people always listen, my son always listens to music, and a lot of people listen to music. And in the UK, people go to church, and there's always music playing. So I thought, why don't we have music in the classroom? It reduces anxiety. So I set up a YouTube channel, and I asked people a lot of international people to nominate music, and we have Turkish music and Arab music and things like this, okay? So when we're working in teams, we just have music in the background. And I always have the criteria that if anybody is unhappy with that, email me, and anonymously, I will turn the volume down or stop it. So no one can lose out from this approach. So I've put a few things on here. So let me just go through what I want to talk about today. Essentially, you can only achieve higher order. Oh dear, this is gone now. And this one goes in. Must be in here somewhere. We put it just down in here. That's fine. Okay. Too much breakfast. You can only achieve higher order learning outcomes. I got a class for 150, and I think I can do with up to 225 in a class using this system. And I can manage to achieve high-level learning outcomes with everybody engaged, having fun in that class, with me on my own in the classroom. Okay. A lot of movement. It helps to go to the gym first, running around the class and bolting around, creating energy and a buzz, and it sort of works very well. And the two conventional methods of teaching that I have really tried to overthrow are the standard lecture method, which we're all familiar with, and also case teaching, which is for business schools, and I think in nursing and other areas, is a method of teaching. How many of you use case teaching? Okay, the case method, where some people call it problem-based learning, or you build cases and you have a discussion, and someone contributes, you write some things up, you're guiding the discussion. But what's going on with case teaching? Of course, you're talking, and everybody else is quiet, right? So you're engaged, and everyone wants to say something. It's not as if there's a zero impact, because as you're saying something, people are actually thinking, well, I was thinking the same thing, I'm frustrated. Or they were thinking, I think differently, and they're frustrated, because only you get the airtime, like I've got the airtime now. Here, everybody's got airtime. Everybody's talking all the time. Everybody's contributing all the time, right? All the voices are going non-stop, right? And they're getting to listen to music as well. So the case method is a problem because, we have a case question. I've to my strategy training at Harvard, which is the royal palace of case teaching, right? And I've had great case teaching training sessions at IMD in Switzerland with the top people, but it's always one person who's leading the case discussion and one person talking. And everyone's getting more frustrated because they want to say something and they're not, or they can't, or culturally it's difficult if you're Chinese to contribute in that way. So it's not really working very well. Can we just close this door again? It's open again. No, sorry. The noise coming from next door, thank you. And these two methods have stayed the same for a number of years, and as that's happened, the context in which we teach has changed substantially. People's attention span is much more limited. Within 5 minutes of teaching, people are sort of falling asleep in the class or checking their mobile phones or things, right? Okay. So what I want to do is to run through in these sessions, and I apologize, we've lost time this morning, to try and explain a little bit about team-based learning. Fortunately, luckily, there is a website, a collaborative, the Team-Based Learning Collaborative does have a website, and if you belong to that, there's sort of resources available which you can look at. And it's a kind of flipped learning approach to teaching. What does flipped learning mean? You want to help me? What's the flipped classroom? Yes, let's go back. The microphone, sorry, let me take the microphone because it's going to, thank you. Yeah. Is that on? I think it's.
The traditional way of teaching is changed.
Yeah.
Instead of instructor giving a lecture and students learning, we are doing something which will reverse this process. Maybe students explaining or they are first watching something or reading something that is rich in material and then discussing it.
In the class?
In the class, yes.
Yeah, thank you. So essentially the content side is brought to the front before the lecture, right? That means also you've got to be careful about the content because you can't give lots of technical content, and sometimes people will give their own readings. They'll write things out, prepared lectures and things for people to prepare before they come to class. So all of that's done before class, right? So the class time is spent not just learning in the sense of memorizing or gaining understanding, because that's been done already. The class time is spent, in the language of Bloom's hierarchy of learning, cognitive learning, the class time is spent applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So to take one example, I'm teaching about industry analysis, 5 forces analysis. The students will read about that before they come to class. When we come into class, we've got this framework, and we will be applying it. But in applying it, for example, to study the profitability of the. Can we lock this door? Is it possible? Sorry. Sorry, lock it. Sorry. By the way, I do this in my classrooms in Dhahran. I lock the door. So what we did then, 5 force analysis, I may give a case like the carbonated soft drink industry, Coke and Pepsi, for example. And we understand, evaluate the industry structure. Is it an attractive industry or not? But then, so we're applying it. But then we are also analyzing, but we're also evaluating, because we're saying, well, that's fine, but what's wrong with Michael Porter's 5 forces? What's wrong with the framework? Get on to that. Well, it's all about people grabbing power and things. And so this is we're moving right up to saying, well, what could we do instead? Could we have a different way of understanding industry? And in technology industries, this is not a very good approach, because in technology industries, it's not about capturing value, it's about creating value. And this framework doesn't really work. So we're getting way beyond just what's the 5 forces, there's this and this and this, right? Into really much more sort of learning up here, okay? Collaboration, team working. Learning outcomes, we focus on cognitive learning outcomes, but what's also important is effective learning outcomes. Going out, talking to employers outside, looking at what in the workplace graduate recruitment staff and organizations are saying. They're saying that the students are coming in, but they can solve problems, but they can't work in teams, they can't manage up, they can't organize their time, plan their time. They're no good at understanding SAP or whatever. And so there's lots of technology. They're not good with technology because they just have Blackboard. Do you use Blackboard here? Yeah, we use it also. It's, you know. And so we're really getting them down here. I'm really trying to get them down here as well. It's the cognitive and it's the effective learning outcomes. Okay? This is the timetable. We're supposed to finish at 10:15, but we'll work it through. So what I'm trying to do is to bring in to work with team-based learning. And when I came across this, I met the author, the pioneer of team-based learning, Larry Mickelson. And I said to Larry, would you come to Henley Business School, Greenlands, Reading, and give a workshop, a teaching and learning workshop? Because I can't persuade all my friends, colleagues to do this, but can you help me? So with the head of the university's Reading Dean of Teaching and Learning, Roger Gibbard, we brought him over, and all the faculty were sent off to Greenland's campus in Henley on Thames by the river, which is very, very nice. None of them wanted to go because it's a teaching and learning afternoon. And they had Larry for a day on team-based learning, and the head of the university said to me afterwards, this is the first teaching and learning event we've ever had where everybody had fun. The faculty were really enthused and sparked by what we could actually achieve, right? So part of the thing is we're harnessing the power of teams, avoiding problems. Content coverage is important, but I'm also concerned about applying it. And it may be that, do I sacrifice content for application? Maybe a little bit. But I get students to think more about the content than they would do otherwise, okay? So what I want to do is to focus in the students on being able to master the content, apply the content, develop interpersonal and group interaction skills, which not a lot of them have got, okay? Focus on becoming lifelong learners, enjoy the course. So this is the sort of general approach I have, okay? So traditional teaching, of course, we have a lecture discussion, individual discussion, pre-class or post-class. In team-based learning, we're shifting towards individual study before class, and then we move to, essentially what's happening is 3 stages, if I go back. Concept mastery in the conventional teaching approach, understanding the knowledge, it's all in the lectures, individual study, in the class, after class. In team-based learning, it shifts to pre-class study, But then we have what's called the readiness assurance process. Because students prepare before class, but we need to know, have they read it? Do they understand it? And what are the problem areas before we move on to the application? So in team-based learning, there's a sequence of activities. This is the bit that's normally done in class that's shunted to the front, pre-class preparation. Students really do the preparation and can look at the slides before they come to class. Really, sometimes they need more guidance in preparing before class. But when they come into class, there's two kinds of classes. There's what we call the readiness assurance process, and that's really focused on assessing whether they have understood and are they in a position ready to go. If you can imagine, I used to go to a gym in Crystal Palace, and there were some 60-meter sprint world competitors there. They were just training all the time, and they were doing big box jumps and things like this. And I have a smaller box jump, and in a way they're training. This is like the readiness assurance, because when they get to the race, of course, when they get the final race, that's the application exercise. But I want to know when they get to the start line, before we start applying it, do they really know, have they trained, do they understand the concepts, the frameworks, the tools, the techniques we're going to use when we apply it in teaching? Okay? So if I look at this, where's the class time spent? Well, if you take a course or a module of a semester, typically you might break it down, chunk it, like you chunk up a carrot cake into slices into a number of different sections. If I'm teaching business strategy, I might have 2 weeks on industry analysis, 2 weeks on competitive advantage, 2 weeks on competitive dynamics, or 2 weeks. So I'm creating sort of blocks or chunks of a course. Okay, right, okay. And for each chunk of a course, what I'll do is the first bit, let's say we've got 2 weeks, the first day, or if I've got 2 lectures of 50 minutes, or one over one, if I have a lecture of 2 hours and 20 minutes, it's great. But I'm not given that. Sometimes I give them 50 minutes, sometimes 1 hour, 15 minutes, and I sort of adjust and adapt. But the first little bit of that 2-week block is spent really focusing on the concepts we call readiness assurance. And then after that, the second part is focused on application of the course concepts. In other words, this is like the beginning of the race, the 60-meter run. Everyone's at the beginning. We can now apply it, and I've checked that everybody's up to speed at this part here. So in a 2-week module, perhaps a week and a half is spent in this area, and the first session or couple of sessions are spent in this part down here. Okay. So that's individual study. That's an individual test. So let's just go through this. The individual study comes early on. But actually, for me, using social media, it's not really individual study. Okay. Because in my teams, I'm using social media, Facebook. And what I discovered was, if I have a class of 150 students, and I have 26 teams of 5 each, and I have them on a closed Facebook group, what I discovered was that every team that was set up had initiated setting up their own little closed Facebook group without me knowing. Wasn't part of the course. And they were using that to collaborate on things and to learn before they got to class. And they would meet to discuss the readings before they got to class. So this is supposed to be individual study, right? But actually, because of the effectiveness of the team working over here, okay, that changed that dynamic. So there was some individual reading. But what happened was they would go through and read things, they'd all discuss things, they'd get together and they'd discuss the concepts on their own using Facebook, in a closed group of maybe 6 students, their own group, right? They'd have their own group, right? And they'd sort of meet in the coffee area, and because they got along as friends, they would discuss things. Well, I don't really understand how to do this indirect cash flow method in accounting, and they said, well, let's meet at the coffee. I've got this, but I don't understand this. And this was going on down here. So this is technically what's called individual study, and some of it's individual study, but there's a lot of team working going on here because of the effectiveness over here. They're seeing how they're learning over here, and that's changing their approach down here, right? But when they go in the classroom, after this, what happens is the first part of my 2-week module here, I give them an individual test, a multiple choice question test. So they all sit round with a multiple choice question test and they answer 15, 20, 25 questions. Multiple choice questions are not straightforward, right? Because you can ask a multiple choice question. You could say, for example, when was the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia established? You can, 1928, 1930, right? Which one? And that's memorization, okay? But as you write multiple choice questions, and there's a lot of technology and a lot of knowledge in how to do this, you can actually write multiple choice questions that already are based on applying knowledge and situations. You can say, for example, Mohammed is working in his electric store and discovers that the shop layout is not working right, and he's been segmenting markets in this way. What would be a good method of resegmenting the market? A, B, C, D, E. Okay, and that is like an application, right?
What is the purpose of this test that you can?
The purpose of the multiple choice question test is to ensure that the students have mastered the concepts, frameworks and tools of the readings. In other words, I've got a textbook, I'm saying please read chapters 5 and chapter 6 on industry analysis. Do they understand? Have they learnt the concept from the chapters? Do they understand the chapter? Do they understand? And these days, with really good textbooks, with lots of examples, the textbooks are not dry. Great textbooks now have lots of things. Do they understand? Do they know, do they understand? And can they actually apply this in a simple way? Which tells me they understand it. So what I'm doing here is they have a multiple choice question test, individual test, and every student comes in and answers MCQs on the readings that they've done, or the video they watched, the materials they've had before class.